Yeah. Lady Justice in the house.
Keeping the balances of justice level with the light of liberty shining bright.
You're so silly.
What?
Yeah. Right.
Offended. We're not allowed to be offended. See?
Well, San Antonio, the chief canceled the First Amendment here in San Antonio. Chief McManus.
That's not my chief.
I know,
So
but I guess the
work for
constables
city.
are okay with the First Amendment.
You
You said you were. You're not allowed to be offended. You just said that. Yeah, you're not allowed to be offended by speech. Now, okay, here's a test. If let's say that, not in here. Of course, this is private property and nobody has free speech in here. But if we were,
Well, to an extent, of course.
well, the law can't. I could say what I want, and you can't arrest me. But if they can ask me to leave, yeah, I don't have free speech in here because it's subject to their rules. But out on the sidewalk, okay, or on public property, let's say that somebody said something to you like that, right? Like they were just going off, F you, F this, right? But they're talking to you. And there's somebody else there. Now, what if they said that they were offended by what I was saying to
That
you?
becomes a whole other ballgame.
Are you saying that could be disorderly?
It could be, but I mean...
Well, what is the requirement to be disorderly? It's Jay Gonzalez. What is the requirement to be disorderly conduct?
We have to cause, we really have to cause, like I said, somebody to be inconvenienced, offended, things like that.
Inconvenience? You have to have a breach of the peace.
It's kind of the same thing. But
Inconvenienced,
nowadays,
offended, just because somebody says they're offended doesn't mean they're literally offended. Right? 66 million people are offended by what Donald Trump says every day. And the other 66 million are offended by Hillary Clinton, right? But an immediate breach of the peace. Now, if there's an officer right there, and somebody breaches the peace with an officer standing right there, is that reasonable?
Honestly, I'd probably be like, hey, I get it, but you got people that are upset about what you're saying.
But is it reasonable? Because it has to be reasonable. A reasonable person would breach the peace if those words were said. Right? Now, see, if there's an officer right there, right? Like, if I'm talking to one of the people on the street and you use fighting words like what we just described, right? They can breach the peace, maybe.
Threatening
it might be
bodily harm
reasonable.
on somebody is completely different than,
Well, FU is fighting words here in Texas.
okay.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, right?
If
you're
threatening bodily injury to somebody else or something like that, that's a completely different thing. That falls under terroristic threats.
No, not quite. Saying FU, like, that's not a terroristic threat. We're going a little bit far now.
No. But if you actually read the definition in the penal code, when you're threatening serious bodily injury or threatening, harm on somebody.
We're just talking disorderly conduct right here.
Yeah, so if you want to go out there and you want to scream and cuss on the corner, have fun.
Well, no. If it's at somebody, not an officer, okay,
that would just be a verbal.
It could be disorderly conduct if they breach the peace over it, right? See, if they think that, like, if you're like, I'm going to beat your ass and you're going towards them, right, and they have reason to believe that you are actually going to do that, and then they defend themselves, right? See, then I would be disorderly, right? But if I'm yelling and screaming at you, right, which I'm never going to do that, but if I was,
that's your right, if you want to.
Right, but we're talking about if somebody else was there and heard it and didn't like it, right? But I'm not talking to them. See, I'm talking to you. Now, no reasonable person would breach the peace with an officer right there.
See, that's the key word, though,
right.
Reasonable person.
It has to be a reasonable person.
There's a lot of people out there that are not.
Yes, but the ones that aren't reasonable, they don't get to claim I was being disorderly because they're not being reasonable. You see, if it was a crime, you would arrest me, right? An officer can take care of themselves. You have the gun, the badge, and the cuffs, and the backup, right? So for anybody to think, oh, they need to run in and protect an officer is absurd. It's not reasonable, right? When there hasn't been a breach of the peace. See, so disorderly conduct just doesn't apply, even if there's kids and everybody else. If you're talking to an officer, disorderly conduct never applies.
Yeah, I mean, unless, like you said, you're in some place like this where that
Oh, in
discretion
here?
is up to them.
Oh, in here?
That's
That-
a bit different.
Well,
Like I said,
it still
that's-
wouldn't be disorderly unless,
No.
I mean, if they asked me to
That would
leave
just
and I
be like, hey,
refused,
That's,
that's all
not
they could
disorderly.
do was ask me to leave, and then I'd have to leave. But it's still not a crime yet, unless I don't leave,
You are correct.
right? But in the eyes of the law, I still have free speech in here.
Yeah.
But in the eyes of Starbucks, I don't. Right, so I haven't lost my rights per se.
No, it's just
Yeah.
it's their property.
Yeah,
so
it's their property.
Kinda
Right.
like, you
If
know.
they allow it, they allow it. But they don't allow that.
Why,
I'll
you
come
tried
right
it?
out and say, no. It's one of the 3
No,
rules,
you're
though.
just
I
messing
know
with you.
I know Starbucks rules. I'm well familiar. No, no threatening gestures or language. No smoking. No sleeping. No drugs. So they have 4
I mean,
rules.
that's most places, but like I said, not everybody.
Some places
follows
have
that.
no shirt, no shoes rules. No, like Starbucks is really pretty liberal. They don't have very many rules. You know what I mean? They get a lot of bad publicity. Every time something happens at Starbucks, man, it's like goes viral. Like I don't
That's
know
the
why
same anywhere.
people like to pick on Starbucks a lot. Like
But it's the same anywhere, you know. It's hardworking people here every day with a smile on their face. They
I love
do a great
Starbucks.
job, and then
I think so.
you know, there's a Starbucks in a completely different state that, you know, one individual decided to make it, you know, and then it's
That's
Starbucks.
what I'm saying. Yeah, it's Starbucks. Yeah, it's not that way. As a
That's-
corporation, they're awesome, but sometimes you have some bad barista here and there.
But, you know, I mean, when you represent a company or a department or, you know, something like that, that's one of those things where, it, you know, like you said, you're not really allowed to, you know, have your opinion.
You're not really allowed to have your opinion. Yeah, well, when you
People ask me that all the time.
You
know,
especially.
What is your opinion on this? And
You can't
I'm
say.
I'm not paid to give you my opinion. I'm paid to enforce the laws. And, you know, it's,
I think the phrase is "you're not at liberty to say."
I mean,
Have you heard that phrase?
well, I mean, I am. I just choose not
You are.
to. I mean, if you were to ask my opinion, I'd be
Well,
like,
what are liberties?
what do you mean? As far as
The people secured the blessings of liberty to themselves. Liberties are rights. Okay, and when somebody says they're not at liberty to say, it means that they don't have the right. Right? And see, you're
I
you
mean,
don't
I'm at
have.
liberty to say.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Choose not to.
No. No. See, okay, you
I'm at liberty to
have
say,
no
but there
free
would, be
speech.
there would be consequences to saying that.
Well,
I mean, I can say it.
you can say it, but you're gonna. Okay, right now you have privileges. If you go too far, then you will lose your privileges and you will get your rights back. But you cannot have both at the same time. You see, so you have a privilege to wear that uniform.
Yes.
And if you try and exercise free speech to its fullest degree, you will lose your privileges.